Mighty and mysterious, King Watzmann sits above Germany's only Alpine National Park. The land below the famous mountain is ruggedly beautiful, wild and untamed. A land between heaven and earth where the golden eagle roams. A land shaped by ice and rock and formed over millennia by the forces of nature. Berchtesgaden National Park is a bastion of winter. While spring has sprung everywhere else, the mountain pastures are still covered by a thick blanket of snow. Very slowly, the rays of the spring sun find their way into the deep gorges of the valleys. Just like in the days of Prince Regent Luitpold, horse-drawn sleighs still travel through the valley. But nowadays, the proud, heavy horses transport tourists, not a monarch, through the mountain forest. While frost still reigns in the shadowy valleys, the sun is beating off the snow on the southern slopes. Mountain spring is near. There are strange tracks in the melting snow. A mysterious being has left its footprint. These tracks are never seen in winter, but suddenly they are everywhere. In bygone days, people thought that these were the tracks of the Tatzelwurm, a creepy being with a reptile-like body and the head of a cat. But nature has an explanation for this phenomenon: marmots. For 7 months, they were hibernating in their burrows underground. In mid-April, the large rodents emerge. As soon as hibernation is over, it's time to mate. The females can only conceive on one single day. Very few people ever get the chance to witness the mating of a marmot couple. Usually, the love act happens under cover of their burrow. A large part of the water contained in the snow evaporates and disappears in the azure sky above the mountains. The rest collects and flows downwards to the valley. Those drops that make it to the bottom feed the habitat of a strange bird. The dipper is the only songbird which looks for food underwater. In the crystal clear water, it hunts crustaceans and insect larvae. Wherever the dwindling snow exposes the ground, life is stirring. The soldanella has already formed buds underneath the snow, and within a few hours, its blossoms open up. Now the sun coaxes other botanical gems from the ground. Among them, the Christmas rose, one of the largest and most magnificent spring flowers in the Alps. On its white petals, it offers bumblebees the first fresh pollen and nectar of the year. An old tale has it that the impressive mountain massif is a monument to a ghastly, scandalous deed. According to legend, Watzmann was once a bloodthirsty ruler. When he set his dogs on a peaceful family of shepherds during a hunt, the dying shepherdess cursed him. And the entire family of the tyrant, king, queen, and between them the children, were turned into stone for good. When warm and humid air rises along the slopes, clouds form far below the mountaintops. In this grey area between sky and earth, the black grouse assemble at their traditional mating grounds every year. The presentation of the magnificent plumage and the mutual trials of strength determine which cock gets to pass on its genes. The frantic hustle and bustle even arouses the curiosity of the chamois, who share the habitat with the now rare birds. It's getting warmer, and slowly the fog is lifting. At hourly intervals, the snow also disappears on the higher pastures. Like the black grouse, the Alpine newts always gather at the same place for their courtship. As there are no aquatic plants, the muddy edge of the bank has to serve as the site for egg laying. In early May, the mountain pasture glows in fresh green, much to the joy of the marmots. After months of hibernation, their territories need to be redefined. A strange sound echoes from the forest. The capercaillie is the largest native bird. These stately creatures prefer the sun-drenched old coniferous mountain forests as a habitat. Despite their size, capercaillies are very frugal. Thanks to special microorganisms in their intestine, they can even survive on spruce needles. Now the well-camouflaged hen is the target of male desires. In order to enjoy her favors, the cocks perform a bizarre courtship ritual. The males always congregate in the same display arena. Gulps, belches and head bobbing make it clear who is the stronger. Once the victor is determined, the weaker male leaves the field. The capercaillie, the original chicken, has always made a powerful impression on humans. Allegedly, the courtship display of the capercaillie was the model for the famous Schuhplattler dance. There is no way to prove this, but it's for certain that Schuhplatteln has always been part of the regional tradition, here in Berchtesgaden National Park. Rugged limestone cliffs and steep rock walls characterize this natural fortress. Even chamois have to be careful not to fall. Impressive mountain peaks rise above the Alpine meadows. The golden eagle has its nest in the steep rock walls. There is already a hungry chick in the eyrie. The parents need to keep going out hunting. Only rarely do they actually return to their rocky turret with prey. For centuries, hunters saw the golden eagle as a pest, competing with them for prey, so it was almost wiped out. It's only since the majestic bird of prey was put under protection that the population is recovering. In Berchtesgaden National Park, 4 pairs of eagles are breeding again. Until a few weeks ago, the camouflage of its winter coat provided optimum protection for the snow hare. Now it is having the opposite effect. However, the eagle was unable to follow it in the dense mountain forest. The rich mosaic of mountain pastures, forests, groups of bushes and bare rock creates an infinite number of niches and corners where animals and plants can live. This is one reason for the biodiversity of the national park. Everywhere life is now bursting from the ground, like these Alpine auriculas. But the spotted nutcracker still relies on its winter supplies. Last summer, it hid an immense number of Arolla pine seeds in the ground. Alpine auriculas are widespread in chamois territory. That's why they're also called Gamsblume, chamois flower. It's high time for a change of coat, for when it gets warmer than 20 degrees Celsius, a thick furry coat becomes a burden. Primrose, gentian, and all the other spring flowers turn the sad brown of the mountain meadows into bright colors. But not just the chamois is losing his winter coat now. The snow grouse also gets a brown summer plumage. After the winter, the animals enjoy the juicy vegetation they have missed for so long. A mountain wilderness like this lets us look into a time long gone, a time when nature, not mankind, formed the landscape. Now that the chamois have food in abundance again, their young are born. But as free and carefree as the childhood of the little fawns seems to be, many of them won't survive the summer. In the breeding season, chamois fawns are the golden eagle's main prey. But a golden eagle can only carry them away whole if the fawns weigh less than 7 kilograms. Again, the parent bird doesn't have fresh meat. He's only carrying thin twigs for the eyrie. The eagles don't endanger the chamois population because it's not necessary to snatch a fawn every day. Often, large prey remains in the eyrie for several days and is gradually fed to the chick. More and more wilderness is entering the eagle's territory. Since 1978, the national park's founding year, some 5,000 hectares of mountain forest have remained unused. Not even the dead wood of Windthrow is removed. It's left to the natural cycle of growth and decay. An amazing number of animals are dependent on the dying trees and dead wood of mountain forests. The three-toed woodpecker loves to feed her chicks with fat beetle larvae. Just before the little woodpeckers get ready to fly, they need huge amounts of food and keep their parents busy with their constant begging. Three-toed woodpeckers specialize in wood-dwelling beetles, like lepturine beetles. Only in places with lots of dead wood will they find enough larvae for their young. Through the beetles, the energy contained in the dead wood is transferred to the woodpecker, so to speak. On rocky blocks in the midst of a sunny mountain pasture, white stonecrop is growing. On the meaty leaves, the Apollo butterfly's caterpillars hatch from tiny butterfly eggs. It takes several ingredients for a mountain pasture to become an Apollo nursery. Without alpine farming, the meadows and their many species would give way to the mountain forest within a few decades. That's why even in the national park, the alpine farming of the mountain pastures is welcome. Even if it doesn't look like it at first sight, alpine farming is a laborious business. This farmed Alp is located in the national park. Here they've been making the aromatic Schüsselkäse, bowl cheese, for centuries. It's a long process for the cheese to get from the pot to the bowl and from there onto the plate. Overnight, the two cows have turned their stomachs full of juicy mountain herbs into aromatic milk. Even if the farm is still largely run traditionally, the dairymaid doesn't milk the cows by hand anymore. A milking machine powered by a noisy generator takes over the task. Edelweiss, the cow, has no preference. Ten minutes later, the udder is empty and the jug is full. The milk is poured into the centrifuge. The centrifuge is very old, we learn. The skimmed milk flows into the larger bucket. It's used to make the Schüsselkäse cheese, a delicacy manufactured in the mountains. In summer, the Alpine meadows are a paradise for large and small herbivores. After about 6 weeks, the Apollo caterpillar is fully grown. Soon it will leave its fodder plant to pupate. Then, countless colorful butterflies will flutter across the Alpine meadows. Not only the soft ground of the meadow, in many places the hard rocks also seem covered with hoof prints. However, these are the fossil remains of huge Megalodonticidae, cowstep mollusks, witnesses of a geological era long gone. 200 million years ago, the Berchtesgaden land was indeed covered by a tropical ocean. The Watzmann East Wall, 1,800 meters high, consists almost exclusively of sea sediment. It's the highest rock wall in the Eastern Alps. What used to be the seabed was lifted into lofty heights when the Alps were formed. Wind and weather keep gnawing at the rocks, and the rain washes it downwards to the valley. Embedded in a vast valley, like a stony glacier, is the largest debris flow of the Northern Alps, the Wimbachgries. The rare columbine, Aquilegia ainseliana, is an expert at moving gravel soil. At the end of June, it unfolds its delicate flowers. The dainty little plant lives in a habitat which couldn't be more extreme and barren, but it can thrive undisturbed. "2,500 years ago, the philosopher Heraclitus described the essence of nature with the words "panta rei," everything flows. Here in the Wimbachgries, you can see that even mountains flow. While water is a rare sight in the rocky desert of the Wimbachgries, it is omnipresent in the valley of the national park's largest lake. At its southern end, the foaming water masses of Germany's highest waterfall plunge down over almost 400 meters. Water doesn't just collect in the brooks and lakes of the national park. Moist air masses condense in the coolness of the higher altitudes to form fog, which many plants and animals rely on, like the Alpine salamander. Because it is partial to wet and cold weather, it is also called Regenmandel, rainman. The summer rain coaxes a veritable treasure from the stony soil. In the old days, many a bold lad risked his life to find it. Today, the edelweiss and its habitat are under strict protection. The white, star-shaped flowers exude an aroma of sweat and honey, irresistible for flies. By carrying pollen from blossom to blossom, they ensure pollination. Like the edelweiss, the ibex is an emblem of the Berchtesgaden Alps, despite the fact that within living memory there have never been ibex here. Only in the last century was the wild goat deliberately established here. Since then, it has been procreating slowly but steadily in the highest and most inaccessible rocky regions. Biologist Benjamin Menner examines the question of whether the ibex was endemic to this part of the Alps in earlier centuries. Evidence of this can be found in the depths of a cave which can only be accessed via a vertical gorge. In his work, Benjamin Menner is always aided by his wife Sandra. She's an experienced speleologist too. The two of them have salvaged many a surprise from the belly of the mountains. In the light of a warm summer day, the two of them descend into cold and dark. The narrow shaft leads to a special cave. Here, the bones of various animals are to be found. They belong to marmots, chamois, and 2 ibex that fell into the cave at some point. Now the skeletons are to be salvaged so they can be presented to the public in the National Park Centre. The bones were discovered a while ago, but Benjamin Menner was the first to examine them thoroughly. Taking out the bones is a complicated task, so that they can be exhibited according to their position on site later. Their position on the floor of the cave has to be documented with precision.
C1, nach links raus.
Benjamin Menner's favorite research subject is the life of cave moths. But this find also appeals to him a lot, as he can draw significant conclusions.
B1. Okay, das ist jetzt C2.
The recovery of the skeletons takes several hours. At 3 degrees Celsius and 100% humidity, the cold is creeping into the scientist's bones. Benjamin Menner has already sent some samples to a specialized laboratory to analyze the age of the bones. The results of the radiocarbon dating will be made public in the National Park Centre.
Bei wie viel war das dann da?
Das ist Nummer 66.
Previously, people had assumed that the ibex is only endemic to the Berchtesgaden Alps because it was established here in the last century. The skeletons from the cave proved otherwise. But if the ibex was actually native to this region originally, why did it disappear at some point? Could mankind have killed off the ibex centuries ago? There are no written sources verifying this, but there is some evidence just outside the boundaries of the national park. The Golling hunting frieze in Austria was probably etched into the rock in the 13th century. The ibex has a very weak flight instinct, which is why it was easy to kill the animal with arrows and lances. Many ibex must have fared like this one, until at some point there were none left. The early inhabitants of the Berchtesgaden Alps have left behind a whole collection of mysterious rock engravings. As many symbols are borrowed from Germanic mythology, some local historians assume that the oldest engravings date back to the time of the mass migration in the 5th century. The drawings etched into the rock prove how long mankind has been settled in the Berchtesgaden Alps. In midsummer, the extremely poisonous wolfsbane unfolds its blue flowers. The grazing livestock stay well clear of the inedible and dangerous perennials. However, an inconspicuous insect is making a beeline for them, the Berchtesgaden bumblebee. One of the world's rarest species of bumblebee, it can only survive in places where there is a lot of wolfsbane. Berchtesgaden bumblebees are extreme as far as specialization in a particular source of food is concerned. They exclusively feed on the nectar and pollen of the wolfsbane flower. With their long tongue, they easily reach the nectar, which is well hidden inside the flowers. A few weeks ago, the queen moved into an abandoned mouse nest. She's almost twice the size of the workers. Unlike honeybees, bumblebees don't make honeycombs, but care for their brood in larvae cells. The fat bumblebee larvae can already be seen under the waxen surface. When feeding them, the workers open up the cells and regurgitate nutritious food pulp into them. They do this by contracting their abdomen. If the temperature in the nest is about to drop, the workers gather the padding of the old mouse nest to warm the brood. Bumblebee colonies are characterized by a strict division of labor. Some care for the brood. Others fly out to visit the flowers of their only source of nectar. Wolfsbane is not the only plant the cows in the alpine pasture avoid. While one species is too toxic, the other one is too bitter. In late summer, the flowers of Gentian pannonica jut out of the alpine meadows in many places. At first sight, the lavish perennial has little in common with its much sung-about Asia relative. But like all members of its species, Gentian pannonica is very rich in bitter substances. Cattle have a good sense of smell and an even better memory. After one bad experience with the bitter herb, they remember the smell and avoid it in future. To live is to learn, even in the animal world. The end of a hot summer day is often decided by heavy thunderstorms. Sudden changes of weather are a notorious danger up here. For the locals of Berchtesgaden, however, these are reminders of the curse which created their most beautiful mountain.